G'day folks, Greg Budd from Bud's Baits here. Welcome to the African Lure Craftsman. In the ensuing episodes, we'll be taking you along while we design and handcraft timber lures and hopefully get out into the water to use them. I've designed lures for some of the big boys in the industry and I sell my lures worldwide. I'll do my best to show you some of the hacks I've learned along the way. Stay with us and experience the wonders of casting lures to bass, giant catfish, tigerfish in Zimbabwe, which I'm fortunate to call my home, and cross borders with us as we'll target the denizens of the deep all along the African coast in magical places such as Mozambique. Through it all, I'll share a bit of my daily life and business experience, which can be quite tough in Zimbabwe at times, as we take you along to run the daily gauntlet of survival. Subscribe and click the notifications button to stay with us. Good day, good folk. Welcome back to the African Lure Craftsman and the continuation of our Garfish build. I've done a lot of work behind the scenes, off camera, and we are now at a stage where the bait is fully foiled and detailed. I think we'll get a close-up of all the detail just now, but it's all ready to paint. I've also 2K'd it, so I've 2K'd over that foil, and I've replaced the rubber bands which I cut off earlier, so we've got a bit of a rigid bait except for this tail. The tail, remember, is going on later and just comes off, but for our initial paint lay, it's all ready to go. What I haven't done, and I thought I'd leave it to show on camera, is I haven't sanded down the 2K here. So you'll notice as well, what I wanted to show you guys was where the creases are. You can see very easily that crease across the head there. That's one of them there. There weren't many others. I didn't get a very even or central meeting place of the foils there, but that doesn't matter, they'll be hidden anyway. All the rest is pretty dead on center, and hopefully the 2K has filled those cracks where the foil meets. Another thing I want to show you here, and this is just an example of when you lay your foil correctly, is if you can see down the bottom here, because it almost looks like that's part of the design, but that's actually just two folds in the foil pushing it down the same way. So if you're doing it, what I'm trying to say is doing it on one side, apply the foil the same way on the other side and you'll get the creases in the same place. That there I'm not worried about as well. We're going to sand that down a little bit as well, but if there are two little marks there forming an arrow, it would probably look just like part of the design anyway. Another little crease there, that's going to disappear, and that's all the creases we've got on this whole bait. So far looking good. We also foiled behind the fins. If you remember, we hadn't done that last time, and we foiled underneath the fins. So everything here now is covered in foil, and it's all ready to go to the paint booth and start the sanding process, and then start the paint lay, which I'm very nervous about, just to mention. But anyway, the thing about this is, if we mess this up, yeah, we can save it, but it's probably going to take a lot of work to save it. So I'm just hoping we don't mess it up. I've been researching the colors. I've got a couple of pictures on my phone there of fresh, robust garfish. Freshly caught, should I say. They are out of the water. Remember, guys, that fish change colors as soon as they're exposed to the air, or they change colors particularly soon after they die. And what colors look like out of the water are different to what they look like in the water. But we will go with the colors that we know a robust garfish to be, and we'll try and get some nice dark colors on the back here. We're going to use our sandback technique, spray a dark color over this exposed scale here, and sand that back to leave paint in the grooves of the scale, and then do a nice lighter sheen over that. I've taken a little bit of artistic license here. If you remember, we talked about how rough the scales were on the underbelly here. I've done them. They're a lot neater than the photographs I've seen, but that's artistic license. I guess we can do that. And they run as far back as into the second piece here. Just a little hint of scale there before it changes into straight striations down the body. The other thing I've done, I've put more striations than they actually are on a garfish this size. It just didn't look right with them being further apart and with the way we do them, so I've just used a bit of artistic license there to get that looking quite nice. Before we go over to the booth, just a little bit of discussion about eyes here. These were the eyes I was going to use, and I still may, but I've noticed that the size is bigger. If you remember, I'd taken out a sample of a smaller 8mm. This is a 10mm. These ones seem to be greener, so I'm not too sure if I'll use them. These are not my standard eyes. These are just fly tying eyes, but they haven't got a normal foil backing on them. They've got a very opaque foil. So what I tend to do is I paint the insides of the eye recess white, so it shines out. But I've been playing with these, and these are a little bit big. I would have to sand them to size, because we've actually got a 9mm here, and you don't get this in a 9mm. But I think they're looking a little bit too green, so let's just place that where it would be and give you guys a look. But they're looking a little bit too green, so I'm going to play around with that anyway. I've got plenty of eyes. Little tale to tell is, for my business, I had to order eyes from China, and you had to order a minimum quantity of 200,000. So I ordered 200,000 eyes of different sizes, different colors. I actually sent the designs to them, and they made eyes for me. So I've got, yeah, let's just say a ton of eyes to choose from, as well as little bits and pieces I've bought in fishing shops and ordered online and various things over the years as well. So I'm sure we'll find the right eye. I also made for this small little plug here, which is again a piece of polycarbonate. This is going to be the plug for the bib, not the working plug though. This isn't what I'm going to put in when we're not using the bib. This is just my painting plug, just to stop debris and paint going in there, which will then inhibit the fit of the bib. So that thing there, as you can see, I've made a little recess in it to go over the wire, and I've sanded it down so it's got a nice firm fit in there, or easy fit, and that just pushes in there and it'll stay there for when I paint. Thus we won't get any paint in there. Little things like that will save you a lot of trouble later on. So just something to remember there. So guys, before we get down to the nitty-gritty of painting, I just want to show you this. My cousin in Australia is a ecologist. I can't say that word, so you know what I mean. And he was kind enough to send me all these pictures from a book he has of the different gars, because I scoured the internet and I was able to find a few, but I just wanted to see the different colors. So the guy we're after is this guy here. It's number 119. He's the robust gar, and very similar to a picture I downloaded, which is going to be in my gallery here, and that's the guy there. So we're basically going to go for these colors. I've cross-referenced this picture here with many photographs of real robust gar, and that gives the best indication of the colors there. So it's light tones, light blue sheen on a silvery belly. We've got the silver stripe, which will be running along the lateral, which we'll add on later. And on the back we've got a kind of almost a whitey cream color with a bit of greens, and obviously the dark back. So we're going to go for that. And what I like about the robust gar is this little spot here, because I think that's going to be a nice little thing to add to the lure as well, just to get that sense of realism. So we're going to use this guy here. I think let's get to the bait and talk about that. My phone will keep on going off, but I'm going to put it up here as a prop. Now, we've talked about the sandbag technique, and we've shown you several videos doing it. What I first want to say with this is, as you can see, I've got the striations at the bottom here. I've got a scale pattern there continuing into the lure, turning into straight striations on the bottom half of the lure, and I've got a very deep set realistic scale on the back here. When I did that, I obviously did this freehand, and I did it using the cross hatch method first, and then just putting the back on the scales. I went over it twice and I pressed very hard just to make sure you've got a very strong indentation. A lot of the Garfish photos I looked at, you could definitely see a darker accent on the forward facing lines here. So what I did there, I accented the back here and went over these areas harder, so that when I leave paint on there and sand back the full coat, it's hopefully going to leave more in there, leaving that realistic look. Before we start painting, the first thing we've got to do is we've got to sand back the 2K where the foil seams are. And you'll see here, if I run my finger along there, there's a few ridges. So let's just start with that. I've got 600 grit here. It's a little bit coarser than the 1000 I use sometimes as well. It'll get this off quicker. And sand back relatively hard. It doesn't matter if you expose some of the foil because we can cover that up. And what I use for that normally is just a thin layer of super glue. But let's just start with that now. Get rid of these seams. Make this as smooth as possible. We don't want to touch the scale here at all, just the back of the lure, because we need the texture that has there. So just the back of the lure. Okay, ready, that's all going. Okay, just wipe that away. Yeah, looking good. Even on the beak here, let's get that flat. You'll see where these lumps were here in the foil, the creases. You'll see where it hasn't sanded just by wiping it off regularly. You can see the shiny spots, otherwise it's all very dull. You'll be able to tell where you've got it. A little bit there I need to get. You'll see there that there's a little bit of a furrow, that shiny bit there. So what I normally do, and it's very simple, if I can get this off, and very careful, so this is very thin viscosity, you don't want it to run everywhere. I would just put a little bit on there, like so. Have an earbud handy, so you can take off excess. And I'll just run that over there. Just like that. You can see it's gone shiny again. I know where the super glue is. And I'll give that a few seconds to dry. It's dry already, and I'll go at it again with the water paper. That covers up any of the exposed foil you might have sanded over. And also should fill any very, very shallow holes like that. Technically that should be done, and I think we've done it, as you can see. Yeah, no super glue there anymore. Okay, let's continue here. I'm not even too worried if there are furrows or creases down here, because I'll normally do the color, and once I've finished the color completely, I'll overlay it again with 2K clear coat. That normally gets rid of anything there, and you can always add a little bit more paint later as well. So I'm not too concerned at this stage. That should do it. A little bit more difficult around these areas. Actually, that's not even bad at all, so I can leave that. This side here I need some. Okay, and finally this tail section. Yeah, that's gone as well. So we're all ready to go. Get that back on there. So we have our colors here, and we've talked about these in previous videos. This is not an actual paint, but just a blue tint, which I use often. It's very, very thinned out with solvent, with thinners. And I've got a standard base coat auto black here. As you know, I always use auto paints, thus wearing a mask. Certain parts of it you're going to see I'm not wearing a mask because I'm going to be talking. I have got my spray booth on, the fans on there, so it is extracting most of the paint that we overspray. What I do for this, and normally for the back on any realistic build I do, a little bit of gunk in there, is I do my mixes in my cup, a little bit of thinners in there, and I will gradually add color until I get the desired tint I want. We're adding a little bit of the blue. Sorry, I've kind of missed the whole cup there, which does happen often, which is why I like to wear old clothes normally, because you get this on your clothes, it's not coming out. And I don't want too bright a color, because I'll show you how bright this is. So quite a very bright blue, as you can see there. So I'm going to add a little bit of black to that. Get the lids on first, because we knock things over. And to do that, I'll normally just use my standard paint mixing tool, which is a little screwdriver. I'll get a drop of black. It's quite runny, this stuff anyway, so I'm not putting a lot in there. And I'll get a little bit more. Not concerned if I'm adding blue to that, because as I said before, there's no real black in nature. So adding little bits of blue all the time, it's just going to probably make it more realistic. Get a bit more of that there. And let's just give that a bit of a mix. I think that's what we want. I want to thin that out a bit more, because I want a very, very opaque sheen on this lure. Not happy with that, guys. What I'm going to do is add a little bit of green. It's still too blue for me. So I'm going to get a little bit of a green color, and I'm going to add that to it as well. Any green. In fact, that is not the right one. I think I need the one my phone's resting against. Why I say this isn't the right one is because it's got a white base and I mixed that myself. I don't want anything that's going to cloud that opaqueness that we're trying to achieve. So this green here has not got a white base. And now I've lost the screwdriver, which happens all the time. And I'm going to get a little bit of that and mix it in there. Bit more. That should do it, I think. Yeah, a little bit better. Elastic band's still on, so I can get the rigidity that I need to spray it. You'll see that they have deformed the bait a little bit because of the twisting and stuff. So it's not exactly straight, but it's better than it flopping all over the place. And I'm going to start on the back here. You'll notice that we have covered the fins again. Going to start from the head here. We've got layers and layers of paint, guys, so just remember that whatever colors you might see here, and I can tell you one thing, it starts looking a lot more ugly before it gets pretty when you're painting it and going through that stage. So never get disheartened at a stage where you've thought, ah, well, it's looking terrible, because it probably is supposed to look terrible before it gets to the stage where it's all dressed up. This blue is obviously far too bright, but it's what I'm going to put as an under before we go over with any other colors. And as you'll see, those foil marks literally just disappear. You can see them through the sheen of the paint or through the opaqueness of the paint, but you can just see them. When I've got a dark color on the back, you won't see that at all. And I'm going to take this down right to behind the fins, above the gills and above the eye, because that's where the dark colors are on this bait fish. Just be a little bit careful around these areas. Great thing with having 2K'd it. 2K'd, if I do go over it a bit, I can just get an earbud with a bit of thinners and scrape it off. It's not a problem. Okay, there's that one side done. We won't go too low there. Let's turn it around and get the other side done. Remember, this layer of paint is really only for the infill of scale. So we just want this as a darker color before the color that we're going to use to go over it. So whatever the color, don't be alarmed by anything. I use a blue because with the tints we use over it, you'll see that it'll change and it'll just show up as a dark scale. But it does give a nice little effect to it. So those are the colors I use. I'm going down to really where the lateral line will be. We're going to have much lighter hues below that, and we don't need to get any scale relief below that anyway. So that's what I'll be doing here, is just finishing this up here. We will deal with the inside of the recesses or the joints at a later stage, so I'm not concerned about that either. I think they'll just be white, and the white will help reflect off these facing foiled sides here and just show a little bit more light when this thing is swimming in the water. Just got to watch the fin there. The lateral line on these garfish, I don't know if you noticed from the picture, doesn't run straight down the body. It actually runs, or when I say the lateral line, the silver streak that runs along the lateral line, it actually thickens towards the end of the body here before it tapers off to a thin. I've actually drawn it in there very faintly, you can see, just so I've got a mark I can paint to. But I think it's going to be quite a pretty feature on this afterwards. So we've painted our darker tone on the back there. It doesn't look straight because it's all contorted, but if I straighten that out, you'll see it is, just because of the elastics there. So what are we going to do? I've let that dry for a little bit. We're going to do our sandback technique on certain areas. I'm going to leave that on the head there, and I'm going to try and sandback behind the fins here to just above the gill plate there, and then sand these sections here. Now how we do that, again, I'm using 600 fresh pieces all the time because it does tend to clog, and I'm going to do it very gingerly. I must admit I'm quite nervous because I wouldn't want to mess this up. Let's get that tail off because it just makes it a little bit more manageable, and let us commence. I'm going to commence at an easier place first, and just here, and try and get that scale off. You can see what's happening there. Gives us a nice scale effect. I'm going to take that all the way to the back. Bit difficult getting in under the fin there, but we'll do it. So that's the one section. We can go over these again when we get them all done. Get this other section. Just small up and down strokes or a circular motion. Both work. And very lightly. You don't want to press too hard and then remove paint entirely from one area, and it can look a little bit untidy. Right onto the back there again. Okay, let's just wipe that off. Okay, getting there. Next section. Okay, just going to do a bit more there, which I've seen here, get that exposed a bit more. There we go. Okay, and finally, or not finally, but the last piece here before we do that, wouldn't worry if there's little areas that are kind of uneven. When you tone over it, they tend to disappear. And let's go for this little area behind the head now. Turn that around. Turn that, get a fresh edge here. This will be a little bit more difficult here, but still achievable. I'm going to fold that in half there to get a firmer edge in there. That's it, use the corner and just take it over about there. That's fine, you can see we've got a bit of a gap, it doesn't matter, the tones will sort that out. Get a little bit more off here. Yeah. And let's see what we can do around there, that's fine. Okay, so what we have there is we have our sandback on that side. Gives it quite a nice effect as is, but we are going to be playing with that some more and toning over it to get a really sort of realistic look. Let's get the other side done. Okay, so we've done our sandback on the entire Garfish. It doesn't look straight, but it is because it's all bent out of place with these elastics. But as you can see there, you get a really nice effect, which when toned over is going to bring that out and look very, very realistic, I think. Not exactly even in every place, but it doesn't matter again. Let me turn this over so you can see the other side. That side's been done as well. Just be sure to clean off all your excess water from after you've sanded. We've left the head dark there because we're going to go darker on that head. And now what we can do is we can tone over that and we can start getting that area there, the dark back or the darker back, looking quite good. So let's do that. I think what I'm going to do though is use a very, very thinned, almost like a cream color with a little tint of green, and we'll go over that there first. You'll be able to see that scale through it, and we'll go up to the midline because above the lateral we've got a darker green line, and then we've got the dark back which we can add later. So we've got our sandback done there. We're going to go over it with that new tone. So what I've done is I've mixed a little bit of it's almost a creamy color. I've put a tint of green in there, you'll hardly see it, and it's going to look really weird initially, but you'll see how it comes along as we tone over that. So we'll start on this now, and let's get that over there. You'll see the blue will dull out a little bit. Take that to about there. Take it over the back. Got this really thin, by the way, guys, so I've got a ton of thinners in here. I mean, I don't know how to even show you that, but it's very thin, and I'm being very gentle with the airbrush. Okay, let's get to the other side. So we've applied our tone over there. It's looking better and better as we go along, more realistic. I'm just going to dry it in between these different sets of tones I do. Quick way is just with a hairdryer. This works with most paints. As you know, I'm using solvent-based auto paints, but it works just as well with these. Particularly in areas where this tape might now go and scratch the top there, which I think it already has done. Okay, done with that. I've just seen an area I need to put a little bit more tone on here. And let's get that done while we see it. Get the odd scale that sticks out like it doesn't belong there. Okay, that'll do that. And we are pretty much done on that section. Bearing in mind we're doing the back still, we're doing other things to this. We'll fill up little gaps there as well, but looking quite nice so far. What we're going to do now is the silver blue sheen just underneath the lateral here, and to do that I'm going to use my blue tint again, and I'm going to put a little bit of green, but just to get, I don't know if you can focus on this, but I'll just show you how much thinners I'm putting in here, just to show you how opaque it is. I mean, that's half the cup full. And I'm going to add a little bit of paint to that just to get a really light. I mean, if you look at that tint, it's actually a dark blue. I don't want a dark blue. And it's not quite the right blue, so I'm going to add a little bit of green to make it more turquoisey, like we did on the back. But we're going to have it even thinner. So we've got a drop of blue in there. See how dark it goes in the cup? But we'll spray it and check. We might pour some back. Just give it a mix. See, very light. So that's how I want it, but let's get a bit of green in there now. Lids on. And I'll use I think in this case this green, but no, I won't. I'll use the same green. was thinking there that the white base might not affect, but I really want to be able to see through this into the foil, so I'm going to go with this other green here. Get a little bit more. It's pretty much what we want. Wipe the excess off. Give that a mix. Yeah, that's it. Got to be very gentle with the airbrush because you overspray and it's just going to pull and run everywhere. So let's get going. Where's our lid? There's a bit of white there. Okay. And what we're going to do is run right at the bottom of the pattern. Going to run a little shade of blue. Not too much, and under the fin here we'll go a bit as well. Just light tones. We can even, while we've got this out, very finely add a little bit into these recesses on the gill plates. Like so. Just all this minute detail I think makes a difference. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that tone is very light on there. We'll even brighten that up, but I'm going to brighten it up after I put the strip, which is quite a way down the line. So let's get the other side done. And of course we all know that these colors just pop as soon as you clear coat them, so it might look a little bit dull now, but it won't for long. Okay. A good thing sometimes, if you can't spray a thin line, is just spray really, I'll do it now just to demonstrate, spray a fatter line over the indentation, and then very easy to get an earbud, a clean one, a little bit of thinners, don't want too much, and you just rub it over the raised areas. Just like that, get a nice little line. Okay, so that's what we got so far. Bearing in mind we're going to have a silver strip partitioning the blue and the greeny sort of back, and we're now going to do the dark back on here and really start highlighting these shapes around the gill plates, which you'll see on the images or on any genuine garfish. So let's get to that. We've mixed a darker color here. I've used a little bit of yellow ochre in there now with a blue tint as well to make a sort of greeny. It's got a little bit of pearlescent in it as well. We're going to just wipe the dust off here, I see, and just run over there over the back with this color. Slight blue tint you'll see already emerging there, and where we've got these areas here exposed, I think you can see that on camera, but it's quite an effective color there. tone that a bit, tone that a bit. As you'll notice, the foil lines are totally gone now. There's nothing there at all. We will get a little bit of darker line on there as well later, and around the eyes. Just turn it around. Just give this a mix again, it's getting a bit thick. And I think that's coming together quite nicely, if you can imagine it straight. Just bend it up a bit. We'll clean up all these gaps later on. I can actually do a little bit of that now, otherwise the darker tones that have not been painted over will stick out. So let's do that now. And I think that'll about do that. I think we've come to a conclusion today, but I'm just going to walk you through a few things here. So basically, someone posed a question on the channel on the previous episode, asking how many, they'd like to know how many hours have gone into this on and off camera basically. But just to give you an indication, I spent yesterday putting the detail and the foil on the rest of the lure. It took me the whole day. So I started at 7:30, I had a bit of a lunch break, did a few other little things, but literally the whole day it took. And that was finishing the detail and then basically 2K'ing it and letting it dry overnight, ready for today's shoot. Why we're stopping now is because one of the techniques I use, and we'll go into this later, is a overlay technique. And what I'm going to do now to secure this paint on here is I'm going to 2K clear coat it and then add the additional colors. It helps for two reasons. One, it secures them on there so you don't, if you drop something or if you get a bit of thinners on it, it's not going to come off and leave an unsightly mark. And two, it helps create a layering effect and a depth to the actual lure. So often if I put excuse me, if I put smaller detail, I'll put it on top of another layer of 2K. I don't use too many, maybe so far maximum 3 before finishing the paint coat and then go into epoxy. But we're going to end there today. I think you'll agree it's getting there. It's looking okay. I would eat it, I think. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen so far. If so, please hit like, subscribe, and join us next week as we carry on making this little lure pretty. Cheers for now.